Cf. Lycycle Myth, Earl, pp. 144-5. Cf. Lycycle Myth, Earl, pp. 266-7. From the way they are described in many of the old Irish manuscripts, we may possibly regard the Tuatha De Danann as reflecting to some extent the characteristics of an early human population in Ireland. In other words, on an already flourishing belief in spiritual beings, known as the Sidhe, was superimposed, through anthropomorphism, an Irish folk memory about a conquered pre-Celtic race of men who claimed descent from a mother goddess called Dana. Page 10, Call 2, LL. 68 cf. Lycycle Myth, Earl, p. 143. Rhŷs Hib, Lect, p. 581n, and Quar Anman in text Roman 3 Roman 2, 355. Kuno Mayers Trans in Voy, of Bran Roman 2, 300. Cf. Standish O'Grady, Early Bardic Literature, London, 1879, pp. 65-6. Lu cf. A. Nut Voy, of Bran, I 157-8. Before Keelt appears, Patrick is chanting Mass and pronouncing benediction on the wrath in which Finn Mac Cumhal, the slain leader of the Fianna, has been, the wrath of Drumderg. This chanting and benediction act magically as a means of calling up the ghosts of the other Fianna, for, as the text continues, thereupon, the clerics saw Keelt and his band draw near them, and fear fell on them before the tall men with their huge wolf dogs that accompanied them, for they were not people of one epoch or of one time with the clergy. Then heaven's distinguished one, that pillar of dignity and angel on earth, Calpurn's son Patrick, apostle of the Gael, rose and took the aspergillum to sprinkle holy water on the great men, floating over whom until that day there had been 1,000 legions of demons. Into the hills and scalps, into the outer borders of the region and of the country, the demons forthwith departed in all directions, after which the enormous men sat down, Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 103. Here, undoubtedly, we observe a literary method of rationalizing the ghosts of the Fianna, and their sudden and mysterious coming and personal aspects can be compared with the sudden and mysterious coming and personal aspects of the Tuatha De Danann as recorded in certain Irish manuscripts. Kuno Mayers Trans in Rev Celt, X 214-27. This tale is probably as old as the 9th or 10th century, so far as its present form is concerned, though representing very ancient traditions, Nut Voy, of Bran, I 209. Stokes's Trans in Rev Celt, Roman 22, 3640. This text is one of the earliest with references to fairy beings and may go back to the 8th or 9th century as a literary composition, though it too represents much older traditions. E.O. Curry, Lectures on Manuscript Materials, Dublin, 1861, p. 504. In the Book of Leinster, pp. 245-6, cf. Lycycle Myth, Earl, p. 269. Cf. Mesca Ulad Hennessy Zed. In Todd Lectures, Sir 1 Dublin, 1889, p2. Cf. Lycycle Myth, Earl, pp. 273-6. Cf. Lycycle Myth, Earl, pp. 273-6. Cf. Silva Gaedlica Roman 2, 222-3. Ib Roman 2, 343-7. Ib Roman 2, 94-6. Silva Gaedlica Roman 2, 220. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 291. In many old texts, mortals are not forcibly taken, but go to the fairy world through love for a fairy woman, or else to accomplish their some mission. No doubt the most curious elements in this text are those which represent the prince and his warrior companions, fresh come from fairyland, as in some mysterious way so changed that they must neither dismount from their horses and thus come in contact with the earth, nor allow any mortal to touch them. For to his father, the king who came forward in joy to embrace him after having mourned him as dead, Lighair cried, "Approach us not to touch us." Some unknown magical bodily transmutation seems to have come about from their sojourn among the Tuatha De Danann, who are eternally young and unfading, a transmutation apparently quite the same as that which the gentry are said to bring about now when one of our race is taken to live with them. And in all fairy stories, no mortal ever returns from fairyland a day older than on entering it, no matter how many years may have elapsed. The idea reminds us of the dreams of medieval alchemists who thought there exists, if one could only discover it, some magic potion which will so transmute every atom of the human body that death can never affect it. Probably the Christian scribe, in writing down these strange words, had in mind what Jesus said to Mary Magdalene when she beheld him after the resurrection, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended unto the Father." The parallel would be a striking and exact one in any case, for it is recorded that Jesus, after he had arisen from the dead, had come out of Hades, or the invisible realm of subjectivity, which, too, is fairyland, appeared to some, and not to others, some being able to recognize him and others not. And concerning the nature of Jesus's body at the ascension, not all theologians are agreed. Some believe it to have been a physical body, so purified and transmuted as to be like, or the same as, a spiritual body, and thus capable of invisibility and of entrance into the realm of spirit. The Scotch minister and seer used this same parallel in describing the nature and power of fairies and spirits, p. 91. Hence it would seem to follow, if we admit the influence in the Irish text to be Christian, that early, like modern Christians, have, in accordance with Christianity, described the nature of the she so as to correspond with what we know it to be in the fairy faith itself, both anciently and at the present day. Death of Muirchertach, Stokes's trans in Rev Celt, Roman 23, 397. Cf. J. Loth, Les Mabinogion, Paris, 1889, I 3852. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 18792. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 142-4. Campbell, The Fians, pp. 7980. In Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 522, it is stated that the mother of Ossian bore him whilst in the shape of a doe. The mother of Ossian in animal shape may be an example of an ancient Celtic totemistic survival. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 311-24. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 311-24. For an enumeration of the Tuatha De Danann chieftains and their respective territories, see Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 225. Cf. Lecycle Myth, Earl, p. 285. I am personally indebted for these names to Dr. Douglas Hyde. Cf. Lecycle Myth, Earl, pp. 284-9, cf. Rev Celt, Roman 3, 347. Cf. E. S. Hartland, Science of Fairy Tales, London, 1891, cc. X Roman 11. Stokes's trans in Rev Celt, Roman 16, 274-5. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 222 ff. Roman 2, 290. In another version of the second tale, referred to above, on page 295, Leigh-Hare and his 50 companions enter the fairy world through a dun. Sometimes, as in De Choca's Hostel, Rev Celt, Roman 21, 157-315, the body bee appears as a weird woman uttering prophecies. In this case, the body bee watches over Cormac as his doom comes. She is described as standing on one foot and with one eye closed, apparently in a bird's posture, as she chanted to Cormac this prophecy, "I wash the harness of a king who will perish." Synonymous names are body bee Catha, Fi Anna, cf. Rev Celt, I 35-7. Cf. Hennessy, ancient Irish goddess of war in Rev Celt, I 32-55. Stokes' Second Battle of Moytura in Rev Celt, Roman 12, 109-11. Luzel, Contes Populaires de Basse-Bretagne, Roman 3, 296-311. The Celtic examples recall non-Celtic ones. The raven was sacred among the ancient Scandinavians and Germans, being looked upon as the emblem of Odin, in ancient Egypt and Rome commonly, and to a less extent in ancient Greece. Gods often declared their will through birds or even took the form of birds. In Christian scriptures, the Spirit of God, or the Holy Ghost, descended upon Jesus at his baptism in the semblance of a dove. And it is almost a worldwide custom to symbolize the human soul under the form of a bird or butterfly. Possibly such beliefs as these are relics of a totemistic creed, which in times long previous to history was as definitely held by the ancestors of the nations of antiquity, including the ancient Celts, as any totemistic creed to be found now among native Australians or North American red men. At all events, in the story of a bird ancestry of Carnac, we seem to have a perfectly clear example of a Celtic totemistic survival even, though Dr. Fraser may not admit it as such, cf. Rev Celt, Roman 22. 2024, Roman 12, 242-3. Hennessy, the ancient Irish goddess of war, in Rev Celt, I 32-57. Ebhil, who came to tell Brian Boramha of his death at Clontarf, was the family banshee of the royal house of Munster. Cf. J. H. Todd, War of the Geed Hill with the Gael, London, 1867, p. 201. Hyde, Literary History of Ireland, p. 440. Cf. Hennessy in Rev Celt, I 3940. In place of Bodybee, Dr. Hyde lit. Hist. Earl, p. 440 uses the word vulture. Hennessy in Rev Celt, I 52. Chief General Reference, Sir John Rhŷs, Arthurian Legend, Oxford, 1891. Chief Sources, Nennius, Historia Brittonum, circa 800, Geoffrey of Monmouth, Historia Regum Britanniae, circa 1136, Wace le Roman de Brut, circa 1155, Layman's Brut, circa 1200, Marie de France, Lies, 12th-13th century. The Four Ancient Books of Wales, 12th-15th century, edited by W. F. Skene. The Mabinogion, based on the Red Book of Hergest, a 14th century manuscript, edited by Lady Charlotte Guest, Sir John Rhys and J. G. Evans and Professor J. Loth, Mallory Lamort Darther, 1470. The Myverian Archaeology of Wales, collected out of ancient manuscripts, Denby, 1870. ILO manuscripts, a selection of ancient Welsh manuscripts, Llandovery, 1848. In a Welsh poem of the 12th century, C. W. F. Skene, Four Ancient Books, Edinburgh, 1868, Roman 2. 37-38, wherein the war feats of Prince Geraint are described, his men, who lived and fought a long time after the period assigned to Arthur, are called the Men of Arthur. And as Sir John Rhys thinks, this is good evidence that the genuine Arthur was a mythical figure, one might almost be permitted to say a god, who overshadows and directs his warrior votaries, but who, never descending into the battle, is in this respect comparable with the Irish war goddess the Bodybee, cf. Rhys, Celtic Britain, London, 1904, p. 236. Cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, Chapter 1. Cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, pp. 24-48. Sir John Rhys sees good reasons for regarding Arthur as a culture hero because of Arthur's traditional relation with agriculture, which most culture heroes, like Osiris, have taught their people pp. 41-3. Cf. G. Maspero, Contes populaires de l'Égypte ancien 3, Paris, 1906, Intro, p. 57. Somers Mallory's Mort d'Arthur, Roman 3, 1. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 9. I am indebted to Professor J. Loth for help with this etymology. Cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 22. I-10 Roman 2, 21b Roman 3, 70 cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 60. C. Williams St. Griel, pp. 278, 304, 341, 617, 634, 658, 671. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 61. Cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, pp. 51, 35 and see our study pp. 374-6. Chevalier de la Charette, ed. By Tarbé, p. 22, Romania, Roman 12, 467, 515, cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 54. Romania, Roman 12, 467-8, 473-4, cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 55. Cf. Tyler Prim, Cult 4 Roman 2, 93-4. Romania, Roman 12, 508, cf. Rhys Arth, Leg, p. 54. Book 19, CI. In the Lebar Brec, there is a tract describing 8 Eucharistic colors and their mystical or hidden meaning. And green is so described that we recognize in its Celtic Christian symbolism the same essential significance as in the writings of both pagan and non-Celtic Christian mystics. Thus, this is what the green denotes when he, the priest, looks at it, that his heart and his mind be filled with great faintness and exceeding sorrow. For what is understood by it is his burial at the end of life under mold of earth. For green is the original color of every earth, and therefore the color of the robe of offering is likened unto green. Stokes, Tripartite Life Intro, p. 189. During the ceremonies of initiation into the ancient mysteries, it is supposed that the neophyte left the physical body in a trance state, and in full consciousness, which he retained afterwards, entered the subjective world and beheld all its wonders and inhabitants. And that coming out of that world, he was clothed in a robe of sacred green to symbolize his own spiritual resurrection and rebirth into real life, for he had penetrated the mystery of death and was now an initiate. Even yet there seems to be an echo of the ancient Egyptian mysteries in the festival of Al-Qidr, celebrated in the middle of the wheat harvest in Lower Egypt. Al-Qidr is a holy personage who, according to the belief of the people, was the vizier of Dihul-Qarnan, a contemporary of Abraham, and who, never having died, is still living and will continue to live until the day of judgment. And he is always represented, clad in green garments, whence probably the name he bears. Green is thus associated with a hero or god who is immortal and unchanging, like the Tuatha De Danann and fairy races. See Sir Norman Locker's Stonehenge and Other Stone Monuments, London, 1909, p. 29. In modern masonry, which preserves many of the ancient mystic rites, and to some extent those of initiation as anciently performed, green is the symbol of life, immutable nature, of truth and victory. In the evergreen, the master mason finds the emblem of hope and immortality. And the Masonic authority who gives this information suggests that in all the ancient mysteries, this symbolism was carried out. Green, symbolizing the birth of the world and the moral creation or resurrection of the initiate. General History, Cyclopedia, and Dictionary of Freemasonry by Robert Mack, 330, New York, 1869. Miv Arch, I-175. The text itself in this work is said to be copied from the Green Book, now unknown. Cf. Rhŷs, Arth, Leg, p. 56n. In this text, the Gwenhwyvar who is in the power of Melwys is referred to as Arthur's second wife Gwenhwyvar, for according to the Welsh triads, I-59, Roman 2. 16, Roman 3, 109, there are 3 wives of Arthur, all named Gwenhwyvar. As Sir John Rhys observes, no poet has ever availed himself of all 3, for the evident reason that they would have spoilt his plot. Arth. Leg, p. 35. D. Ob Gwillim's Poetry, London, 1789, Poem CXI, line 44. Cf. Rhys, Arth. Leg, p. 66. Mallory, Book 1, c. Roman 25. One account of Arthur's sword Caladvolch or Caliburn describes it as having been made in the Isle of Avalon, Lady Ch. Guests Mabinogion, Roman 2. 322 n, also Miv. Arch, Roman 2, 306. Mallory, Book 9, c. Roman 15. Sir John Rhys takes the Lady of the Lake who sends Arthur the sword and the one who aids him afterwards, though, apparently by error, 2 characters in Mallory as different aspects of the one Lake Lady Morgan Arth. Leg, p. 348. Merlin explained to Arthur that King Loth's wife was Arthur's own sister, Somers Mallory, I-64-5, and King Loth is one of the rulers of the other world. Book 21, c. Roman 6. This poem, according to Gaston Paris, was translated during the late 12th century from a French original now lost, Romania, X, 471. Cf. Rhys, Arth. Leg, p. 127. Mallory, Book 12, cc. Roman 3x, Rhys, Arth. Leg, pp. 145-164. Galahad, however, does not belong to the more ancient Arthurian romances at all, so far as scholars can determine, and therefore too much emphasis ought not to be placed on this episode in connection with the character of Arthur. We should like to direct the reader's attention to the interesting similarity shown between this old story of Culhwch and Olwen and the fairy legend which we found living in South Wales, and now recorded by us on page 161, under the title of Einion and Olwen. As we have there suggested, the legend seems to be the remnant of a very ancient bardic tale preserved in the oral traditions of the people. And the prevalence of such bardic traditions in a part of Wales where some of the Mabinogion stories either took shape, or from where they drew folklore material, would make it probable that there may even be some close relationship between the Olwen of the story and the Olwen of our folk tale. If it could be shown that there is, we should be able at once to regard both Olwens as fair folk, or of the Tylwyth Teg, and the quest of Culhwch as really a journey to the otherworld to gain a fairy wife. We may even have in the story of Culhwch and Alwyn a symbolical or mystical account of ancient Brythonic rites of initiation, which have also directly to do with the spiritual world and its invisible inhabitants. Cf. J. Loth, Les Mabinogion, Paris, 1889, p. 252n. Cf. J. Loth, Le Mabinogi de Culhwch at Alwyn, St. Brieuc, 1888, intro, p. 7. Lady Ch. Guests Mabinogion, London, 1849, Roman 2, 323n. Cf. R. H. Fletcher, Arthurian Material in the Chronicles in Harv, Stud, and Notes in Phil, and Lit, X21. Fletcher Ib, X29, 26. Rhŷs Arth, Leg, p7, and Rhŷs the Welsh People 3, London 1902, p105. Cf. Fletcher Op. Sit, X43 115 from ed. by Sanmart A. Schulz Gottfrieds von Monmouth Hist. Reg. Brit. Halle 1854, Engtrans by A. Thompson The British History and C. 1718. Cf. Fletcher Op. Sit, pp. 11744. Sir Frederick Madden, Layman's Brute, London, 1847, Roman 2. 384. Here the Germanic elves are by laymen made the same in character and nature as Brythonic elves or fairies. Madden, Layman's Brute, Roman 2, 144. J. Badier's ed. Société des Anciens Textes Francais, Paris, 1902. E. Murit's ed. Société des Anciens Textes Francais, Paris, 1903. A. C. L. Brown, The Knight and the Lion, also by same author Iwain in Harv, Stud, and Notes in Phil, and Lit, Roman 7, 146 and c. Celtic Mag, Roman 12, 555, Romania 1888, cf. Brown, Ib. J. Loth, Les Romans Arthurians in Rev. Celt, Roman 13, 497. Bibliotheca Normannica, Roman 3, Die Lies der Marie de France, pp. 86-112. Cf. W. H. Schofield, The Lays of Greylant and Lanville and the Story of Wayland in Pub, Maud Lang. Ass of America, Roman 15, 176. Cf. Schofield, The Lay of Gingemmer in Harv, Stud, and Notes in Phil and Lit, v. 221-2. For additions and fuller details of the fairy elements, see de la Warby Easter, A Study of the Magic Elements in the Romans d'Aventure and the Romans Bretons, Johns Hopkins Univ. Baltimore, 1906. See also Lucy A. Patton, Studies in the Fairy Mythology of the Arthurian Romance, Radcliffe College Monograph Roman 13, New York, 1903. Perk, Roman 6, 235, cf. Easter's Dissertation, p. 42n. Jouffroy 3179 ff. Ed. Hoffman and Munker, Halle 1880, cf. Easter's Dis, pp. 42n. Brunn 562 ff. 3237, 3251, 3396, 3599 ff. Ed. Paul Mayer, Paris 1875, cf. Ib, pp. 42n, 44n. E. Anwyl, The Four Branches of the Mabinogi, in Zeit, Fur Celt, Phil. London, Paris 1897, I 278. Cf. Nutvoy of Bran, Roman 2, 1921. Black Book of Caermarthen, Roman 17, stanza 7, LL 58. This book dates from 1154 to 1189 as a manuscript. Cf. Skene, 4 Anc. Books I, 3, 372. Stanzas 1920. This book took shape as a manuscript from the 14th to 15th century, according to Skene. Cf. Skene, 4 Anc. Books I3, 464. See A Fugitive Poem of Muad'Din in His Grave. Red Book of Hergest, Roman 2. Skene, Ib. I 478-81, stanza 27. Chief General References. H. Darbois de Jubinville, L'Épopée Celtique en Irlande, Le Cycle Mythologique Irlandais. Kuno Mayer and Alfred Nutt, The Happy Otherworld and the Celtic Doctrine of Rebirth. Chief Sources. The Liebhaar na A. Tudor AD 1100. The Book of Leinster 12th century. The Lies of Marie de France 12th to 13th century. The White Book of Rhydderch Hengwit Call. 13th to 14th century. the Yellow Book of Lecan, 15th century, the Book of Lismore, 15th century, the Book of Fermi, 15th century, the four ancient books of Wales, 12th to 15th century. One of the commonest legends among all Celtic peoples is about some lost city like the Breton is, or some lost land or island, cf. Rhŷs Arth. Leg, see Roman 15, and Celtic folklore, see Roman 7. And we can be quite sure that if, as some scientists now begin to think, cf. Beitella, Probas Geologicas de la Existencia de la Atlantida, in Congreso Internacional de Americanistas, Roman 4, Madrid, 1882. Also Mayer's, Gross's Conversations Lexicon, Roman 2. 44, Leipzig und Wien, 1903, Atlantis once existed, its disappearance must have left from a prehistoric epoch a deep impress on folk memory. But the otherworld idea being in essence animistic is not to be regarded, save from a superficial point of view, as conceivably having had its origin in a lost Atlantis. The real evolutionary process, granting the disappearance of this island continent, would seem rather to have been one of localizing and anthropomorphizing very primitive Aryan and pre-Aryan beliefs about a heaven world, such as have been current among almost all races of mankind in all stages of culture, throughout the two Americas and Polynesia as well as throughout Europe, Asia, and Africa. Cf. Tyler Prim, Cult, 4 Roman 2. 62, 48, and c. White Book of Rhydderch, folio 291a, cf. Rhŷs Arth, Leg, pp. 268-9. From Extracandla in the Liebhar na a Tutor, cf. Le Cycle Myth, Earl, pp. 192-3. Cf. Eleanor Hull, The Silver Bow in Irish Legend in Folklore, Roman 12. Cf. Eleanor Hull op. Cit. p. 431. Classical parallels to the Celtic otherworld journeys exist in the descent of Dionysus to bring back Semele, of Orpheus to recover his beloved Eurydice, of Heracles at the command of his master Eurystheus to fetch up the three-headed Kerberos as mentioned first in Homer's Iliad, cf. Tyler, Prim. Cult, 4 Roman 2, 48, and chiefly in the voyage of Odysseus across the deep-flowing ocean to the land of the departed, Homer Odyss. Servius ad Ein, Roman 6, 136 ff. Voy, of Bran, I pp. 2 ff. The tale is based on 7 manuscripts ranging in age from the Liebhar na a Tutor of about AD 1100 to 6 others belonging to the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries, cf. Ib. p. Roman 16. This tale exists in several manuscripts of the 14th and 15th centuries, i.e. Book of Balamote and Yellow Book of Lecan, as edited and translated by Stokes in Irish text, Roman 3, I 183-229, cf. Voy, of Bran, I 190 ff. cf. Le Cycle Myth. Earl, pp. 326-33. The fountain is a sacred fountain containing the sacred salmon, and the 9 hazels are the sacred hazels of inspiration and poetry. These passages are among the most mystical in Irish literature. Cf. pp. 432-3. Cf. Stokes's Trans in Irish text, Leipzig, 1891, Roman 3, I 211-16. The Greeks saw in Hermes the symbol of the Logos. Like Mannanan, he conducted the souls of men to the otherworld of the gods and then brought them back to the human world. Hermes holds a rod in his hands, beautiful, golden, wherewith he spellbinds the eyes of men whomsoever he would, and wakes them again from sleep-in initiations, while Mannanan and the fairy beings lure mortals to the fairy world through sleep produced by the music of the silver branchipolitis on the Gnossines from the Hebrew Nachesh, meaning a serpent, a Gnostic school, cf. G. R. S. Mead, Fragments of a Faith Forgot, pp. 198-201. Or again, the caduceus or rod of Mercury, Hermes, and the thyrsus in the Greek mysteries, which conducted the soul from life to death, and from death to life figured forth the serpentine power in man, and the path whereby it would carry the man aloft to the height, if he would but cause the waters of the Jordan to flow upwards. G. R. S. Mead. Ib. p. 185. Cf. Hennessy's ed. In Todd Lectures, Sir, I 9. Among the early ecclesiastical manuscripts of the so-called prophecies. C. E. O. Curry, Lectures, p. 383. Cf. Eleanor Hull op. Cit. pp. 439-40. now in 3 versions based on the L.U. Mizar version, is collated from O'Curry's translation in Atlantis, I 36292, Roman 2, 98-124, as revised by Kuno Mayer, Voy, of Bran, I 152 FF, and from Jubinville's translation in Elape. Celt. N. Earl, pp. 172-16. As Alfred Nutt pointed out, there is no parallel to the position or to the sentiments of Fand in the post-classic literature of Western Europe until we come to Guinevere and Iseult, Ninian and Orgelus. Voy. Of Bran, I 156N. See poem Tir na Nog, Land of Youth, by Michael Kamin, composed or collected about the year 1749. Ed. By Brian O'Looney in Trans Ossianic Soch, Roman 4, 234-70. League Hare, who also came back from fairyland on a fairy horse, and 50 warriors with him each likewise mounted, to say goodbye forever to the king and people of Connaught, were warned as they set out for this world not to dismount if they wished to return to their fairy wives. The warning was strictly observed, and thus they were able to go back to the she-world, CP 295. Cf. Bibliotheca Normannica, Roman 3, Die Lies der Marie de France, pp. 86-112. Cf. Stokes's Trans in Rev Celt, Roman 9, 453-95 x 5095. Most of the tale comes from the L.U. Ms. Cf. Elape. Celt. N. Earl, pp. 449-500. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 385-401. The Ms. text, Ecaratij M. Hike Shean, or The Adventure of Sion's Son Tag, is found in the Book of Lismore. Summarized and quoted from translation by R. I. Best, in Rhŷs, Roman 3, 150-73. The text is found in the Book of Firm, pp. 139-45, a 15th-century codex in the Royal Irish Academy. Folios 113-15, Trans O'Bairn Crow, Journ, Kilkenny Archie Sock. 1871 pp. 371-448, cf. Rhŷs Hib, Lect, pp. 261. Cf. Skene, 4 Ancient Books of Wales, I 264-6, 276, and c. Cf. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 301 ff. From additional Ms. 34,119, dating from 1765, in British Museum. Giallo and Efhiogha, or The Lad of the Feral, Trans. By Douglas Hyde in Irish Text Society, London, 1899. Cf. Mayer and Nutt, Voy. Of Bran, I 147, 228, 230, 235, 161. The bulk of the text comes from the Book of Firm. Cf. Stokes's Trans, in Rev Celt, Roman 14, 59, 49, 53, and c. J. Loth, L. Immigration Breton and Armorique, Paris, 1883, pp. 139-40. Ed. and Trans by W. Stokes, Calcutta, 1866. This vision has been erroneously ascribed to the celebrated abbot of Iona, who died in 703, but Professor Zimmer has regarded it as a 9th-century composition. Cf. Voy of Bran, I 219 ff. Cf. Voy of Bran, I 195 ff. C. J. G. Campbell, The Fians, pp. 267. The Literary Movement in Ireland, in Ideals in Ireland, ed. By Lady Gregory, London, 1901, p. 95. Cf. Voy of Bran, I 331. General reference. Essay upon the Irish Vision of the Happy Otherworld and the Celtic Doctrine of Rebirth by Alfred Nutt in Kuno Mayer's Voyage of Bran. Chief sources, Liebharna Echuiter, Book of Leinster, 4 Ancient Books of Wales, Mabinogion, Silva Gaedlica, Bardas, a collection of Welsh manuscripts made about 1560, and the Annals of the Four Masters, compiled in the first half of the 17th century. Cf. Plato, Republic X, Phaedo, Phaedrus, and c. Iamblichus, Concerning the Mysteries of Egypt, Chaldea, Assyria, Plutarch, Mysteries of Isis, de Isid et Osirid. He says, I, for my part, suspect that the spirit was implanted in them rational creatures, men from without, De Principiis, Book 1, see Roman 7. 4. The cause of each one's actions is a pre-existing one, And then everyone, according to his deserts, is made by God either a vessel unto honor or dishonor. Ib. Book 3, CI 20. Whence we are of opinion that, seeing the soul, as we have frequently said, is immortal and eternal, it is possible that, in the many and endless periods of duration in the immeasurable and different worlds, it may descend from the highest good to the lowest evil, or be restored from the lowest evil to the highest good. Ib. Book 3, CI 21. Everyone has the reason in himself why he has been placed in this or that rank in life. Ib. Book 3, CV 4. Cf. Bergier Origine Indict. De Theology v. 69. Holy Bible Revised Version St. Matt, Zi 1415, cf. St. Matt, Romans 17, 1013, St. Mark, Roman 9, 13, St. Luke, Romans 7, 27, St. John I 21. Tertullian's conclusion is as follows: these substances, soul and body, are in fact the natural property of each individual, whilst the spirit and power, cf. Mal, Roman 4, 5, are bestowed as external gifts by the grace of God, and so may be transferred to another person according to the purpose and will of the Almighty, as was anciently the case with respect to the spirit of Moses, cf. Num, Roman 12, 2, De Animacy, Roman 35, cf. Trans in Ante-Nicene Christian Library, Edinburgh, 1870, Roman 15, 496-7. Origen says, but that there should be certain doctrines not made known to the multitude, which are after the exoteric ones have been taught, is not a peculiarity of Christianity alone, but also of philosophically systems, in which certain truths are exoteric and others esoteric. Origen against Celsus, Book 1, see Roman 7. How Tertullian almost literally accepted the rebirth doctrine is shown in his Apology, chapter 48, concerning the resurrection of the body. It is the corrupted form of the doctrine, viz., transmigration of human souls into animal bodies, which he therein, as well as in his De Anima and elsewhere, chiefly and logically combats, as Origen also combated it. He first shows why a human soul must return into a human body in accordance with natural analogy, every creature being after its own kind always. And then, because the purpose of the resurrection is the judgment, that the soul must return into its own body. And he concludes, it is surely more worthy of belief that a man will be restored from a man, any given person from any given person, but still a man, so that the same kind of soul may be reinstated in the same mode of existence, even if not into the same outward form. The Apology of Tertullian for the Christians, cf. Trans, by T. H. Bindley, Oxford, 1890, pp. 137-9. British Museum Ms. Ad. 5114, Velama Coptic manuscript in the dialect of Upper Egypt. Its undetermined date is placed by Woid at latest about the end of the 4th century. It was evidently copied by one scribe from an older manuscript, the original probably having been the Apocalypse of Sophia, by Valentius, the learned Gnostic who lived in Egypt for 30 years during the 2nd century. See the translation of the Schwartzy's parallel Latin version of Pistis Sophia and its introduction, both by G. R. S. Mead, London, 1896. The chief passages are as follows, Jesus being the speaker. Moreover, in the region of the soul of the rulers, destined to receive it, I found the soul of the prophet Elias in the aeons of the sphere, and I took him, and receiving his soul also, I brought it to the Virgin of Light, and she gave it to her receivers. They brought it to the sphere of the rulers, and cast it into the womb of Elizabeth. Wherefore the power of the little Io, who is in the midst, and the soul of Elias the prophet, are united with the body of John the Baptist. For this cause have ye been in doubt aforetime, when I said unto you, John said, I am not the Christ. And ye said unto me, it is written in the Scripture, that when the Christ shall come, Elias will come before him, and prepare his way. And I, when ye had said this unto me, replied unto you, Elias verily is come, and hath prepared all things, according as it is written. And they have done unto him whatsoever they would. And when I perceived that ye did not understand that I had spoken concerning the soul of Elias united with John the Baptist, I answered you openly and face to face with the words, if ye will receive it, John the Baptist is Elias who, I said, was for to come. Pistis Sophia, Book 1, 1213, Mead's translation. The Saviour answered and said unto his disciples, preach ye unto the whole world, saying unto men, strive together that ye may receive the mysteries of light in this time of stress, and enter into the kingdom of light. Put not off from day to day, and from cycle to cycle, in the belief that ye will succeed in obtaining the mysteries when ye return to the world in another cycle. Pistis Sophia, Book 2, 317, Mead's translation. Cf. Bergier Manichaeisme in Dict, De Theol, Roman 4, 211-13. The refutation of Irenaeus, until quite recently, has been the chief source of much of our knowledge concerning Gnosticism. It was written during the 2nd century at Lyon, by Irenaeus, a bishop of Gaul, far from any direct contact with the still flourishing Gnosticism. But now with the discovery of genuine manuscripts of Gnostic works. 1. The Askew Codex, Vellum, British Museum, London, containing the Pistis Sophia, see above, p. 361n, and extracts from the books of the Saviour. 2. The Bruce Codex, 2 MSS. Papyrus, Bodleian Library, Oxford, containing the fragmentary book of the Great Logos, an unknown treatise and fragments. And 3. The Akhmim Codex, discovered in 1896, Papyrus, Egyptian Museum, Berlin, containing the Gospel of Mary or Apocryphon of John, the Wisdom of Jesus Christ, and the Acts of Peter. We are able to check from original sources the Fathers in many of their writings and canons concerning Gnostic heresies, and find that Irenaeus, the last refuge of Christian heresiologists, has so condensed and paraphrased his sources that we cannot depend upon him at all for a consistent exposition of Gnostic doctrines, which with more or less prejudice he is trying to refute. It is true that the age of these manuscripts has not been satisfactorily determined. In fact, most of them have not yet been carefully studied. Very probably, however, as appears to be the case with the Pistis Sophia, they have been copied from manuscripts which were contemporary with or earlier than the time of Irenaeus, and hence may be regarded as good authority in determining Gnostic teachings. Cf. All of above note with G.R.S. Mead, Fragments of a Faith Forgotten, London, 1900, pp. 147, 151-3. Many unprejudiced scholars are now unwilling to admit the rulings of the church councils, which determined what was orthodox and what heretical doctrines among the Gnostic Christians, because many of their dogmatic decisions were based upon the unscholarly refutation of Irenaeus and upon other equally unreliable evidence. The data which have accumulated in the hands of scholars about early Christian thought and Gnosticism are now much more complete and trustworthy than the similar data were upon which the Council of Constantinople in 553 based its decision with respect to the doctrine of rebirth. And the truth coming to be recognized seems to be that the Gnostics rather than the Church Fathers, who adopted from them what doctrines they liked, condemning those they did not like, should henceforth be regarded as the first Christian theologians and mystics. If this view of the very difficult and complex matter be accepted, then modern Christianity itself ought to be allowed to resume what thus appears to have been its original position so long obscured by the well-meaning, but nevertheless ill-advised ecclesiastical councils as the synthesizer of pagan religions and philosophies. Some such view has been accepted by many eminent Christian theologians since Origen, i.e. the Cambridge Platonist, Henry More, openly advocated the rebirth doctrine in the 17th century, and in later times it has been preached from Christian pulpits by such men as Henry Ward Beecher and Phillips Brooks. C.A. Bertrand, La Religion des Gaulois, Les Druides et le Druidisme, Paris, 1897. H. Jennings, The Rosicrucians, London, 1887. The Work of Paracelsus, H. Cornelius Agrippa de Occulta Philosophia, Paris, 1567. H. P. Blavatsky's Isis Unveiled, and The Secret Doctrine, London, 1888. And Hermetic Works by Anna Kingsford and E. Maitland, London, 1885. Cf. Bergier Purgatoire, Indict. De Theol, v. 409. A Celt, a professed faithful and fervent adherent of the Church of Rome, whom I met in the Morbihan where he now lives, told me that he believes thoroughly in the doctrine of rebirth, and that it is according to his opinion the proper and logical interpretation of the doctrine of purgatory. And he added that there are priests in his church who have told him that their personal interpretation of the purgatorial doctrine is the same. Thus some Roman Catholics do not deny the rebirth doctrine. And such conversations as this with Catholic Celts in Ireland and Brittany lead me to believe that to a larger extent than has been suspected, the old Celtic doctrine of rebirth may have been one of the chief foundations for the modern Roman Catholic doctrine of purgatory, whose origin is not clearly indicated in any theological works. For us, this probability is important as well as interesting, and especially so when we remember the profound influence which the Celtic St. Patrick's purgatory certainly exerted on the Church during the Middle Ages when the doctrine of purgatory was taking definite shape. See our Chapter 10. Barda's Llandovery, 1862, is a collection by Iolo Morganwg, a bard of original documents, illustrative of the theology, wisdom, and usage of the Bardo-Druidic system of the Isle of Britain. The original manuscripts are said to have been in the possession of Llewellyn Sion, a bard of Glamorgan, about 1560. Barda's shows considerable Christian influence, yet in its essential teachings is sufficiently distinct. Though of late composition, Barda's seems to represent the traditional bardic doctrines as they had been handed down orally for an unknown period of time, it having been forbidden in earlier times to commit such doctrines to writing. We are well aware also of the adverse criticisms passed upon these documents, but since no one questions their Celtic origin, whether it be ancient or more modern, we are content to use them. Barda's I. 189-91. Barda's I. 177. Preface to Barda's, Roman 42. One of the greatest errors formerly made by European Sanskrit scholars and published broadcast throughout the West, so that now it is popularly accepted there as true, is that nirvana, the goal of Indian philosophy and religion, means annihilation. It does mean annihilation, evolutionary transmutation of lower into higher, but only of all those forces or elements which constitute man as an animal. The error arose from interpreting exoterically instead of esoterically, and was a natural result of that system of Western scholarship, which sees and often cares only to examine external aspects. Native Indian scholars who have advised us in this difficult problem prefer to translate nirvana as self-realization, i.e., a state of supernormal consciousness, to be acquired through the evolution of the individual, as much superior to the normal human consciousness as the normal human consciousness is superior to the consciousness existing in the brute kingdom. De Bell, Gal, Lib. Roman 6, 14, 5 Roman 6, 18:1. Book 5, 31, 4. Decidu Orbis, Roman 3. C2. One point alone of the Druids' teaching has become generally known among the common people, in order that they should be braver in war, that souls are eternal and there is a second life among the shades. I 440-962. Lucan, I 457-8, I 458-62. Cf. Le Cycle Myth, Earl, pp. 345-347 ff. Folklore, Roman 12, 64 and c. Also cf. Elinor Hull, The Cuchullin Saga in Irish Literature, London, 1898, Intro, p. 23 and c. What is probably the oldest form of a tale concerning Conchobar's birth makes Conchobar the son of a god who incarnated himself in the same way as did Lug and Etain. Cf. Voy, of Bran, Roman 2, 73. See Liebhar na Échuter, 101b, and Book of Leinster, 123b, Cuchullain MCD Dichtieri. We have already mentioned the belief that gods having their abode in the sun could leave it to assume bodies here on earth and become culture heroes and great teachers. C.P. 309. From Wooing of Emer in Liebhar na Échuter, cf. Voy, of Bran, Roman 2, 97. L.A. Celt, N. Earl, p. 11. Cf. Voy of Bran, Roman 2, p. 74 ff. In the Liebhar na Échuter, 133a-134b, cf. Le Cycle Myth Earl, pp. 336-43, cf. Voy of Bran I 4952, cf. O'Curry, Manners and Customs, Roman 3, 175. Cf. Stokes's ed. Annals of Tigernach, 3rd Frag, in Rev Celt, Roman 17, 178. In the piece called Tucate Baile Mongan in the Liebhar na Échuter, p. 134, Call 2, Mongan is seen living with his wife the year of the death of Kieran Macint Share, and of Tuathal Maelgarb, that is to say in 544, following the Chronicum Scotorum Hennessy's ed. pp. 48-9. As Darbois de Jubainville adds, the Irish chronicles of this epoch are only approximate in their dates. Thus, while the Four Masters I 243 makes the death of Mongan AD 620, the Annals of Ulster makes it AD 625, the Chronicum Scotorum AD 625, the Annals of Clonmacnoise AD 624, and Egerton Mis 1782a, D 615, cf. Voy. Of Bran, I 137-9. J. O'Donovan, Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters, Dublin, 1856, I 121. Cf. Lecycle Myth, Earl, pp. 330-643, O'Curry, Manners and Customs Roman 3, 175, LU 133a-134b, and Voy, of Bran, I 52. Voy of Bran, I 44-5, from the conception of Mongan. Mayer's version, Voy of Bran, I 73-4. Cf. Voy of Bran, I 137. Voy of Bran, I 22-8, quatrains 48-59 and c. In LU, cf. Lecycle Myth, Earl, pp. 311-22, and Voy of Bran, Roman 2, 47-53. In the Irish conception of rebirth, there is no change of sex. Lug is reborn as a boy, in Cuchulainn, Finn as Mongan, Etain as a girl. But it seems that Etain as a mortal had no consciousness of her previous divine existence, while Cuchulainn and Mongan knew their non-human origin and pre-existence. Some time after this, according to one part of the tale, Eochaid stormed Midír's fairy palace for the purpose localized in Ireland and won Etain back. But the fairies cast a curse on his race for this, and Canair, his grandson, fell a victim to it. Such a recovering of Etain by Eochaid may vaguely suggest a rebirth of Etain, through the power exerted by Eochaid, who, being a king, is to be regarded in his non-human nature as one of the Tuatha De Danann himself, like Midir his rival. Cf. the Giladacarer in Silva Gaedlica pp. 303. Cf. Voy of Bran, Roman 2, 76 ff. The Christian scribe's version fills up the space between Tuin's death and rebirth by making him pass 80 years as a stag, 20 as a wild boar, 100 as an eagle, and 20 as a salmon ib, p. 79. In this particular example, the uninitiated scribe, evidently having failed to grasp an important aspect of the rebirth doctrine, as this was esoterically explained in the mysteries, namely, that between death and rebirth, while the conscious ego is resident in the otherworld, the physical atoms of the discarded human body may transmigrate through various plant and animal bodies, appears to set forth as Celtic and erroneous doctrine of the transmigration of the conscious ego itself. CP 513n. In other texts, for example in the song which Amergin considered the Gaelic equivalent or even original of the Brythonic Taliesin, sang as he, with the conquering sons of Mill, set foot on Ireland, there are similar transformations attributed to certain heroes like Taliesin, see the Mabinogion, and Tuin Mac Carroll during their disembodied states after death and until rebirth. But these transformations seem to echo poetically, and often rationally, a very mystical Celtic pantheism, in which man, regarded as having evolved upwards through all forms and conditions of existence, is at one with all creation. I am the wind which blows o'er the sea, I am the wave of the deep, I am the bull of 7 battles, I am the eagle on the rock, I am a tear of the sun, I am the fairest of plants, I am a boar for courage, I am a salmon in the water, I am a lake in the plain, I am the world of knowledge, I am the head of the battle-dealing spear, I am the god who fashions fire in the head, who spreads light in the gathering on the mountain, who foretells the ages of the moon, who teaches the spot where the sun rests. And Amergin also says, I have been Book of Invasions, cf. Voy of Bran, Roman 2, 91-2, cf. Rhŷs Hib, Lect, p. 549, cf. Skene, 4 Ancient Books, I 276 ff. In later times, especially among non-bardic poets, there has been a similar tendency to misinterpret this primitive mystical Celtic pantheism into the corrupt form of the rebirth doctrine, namely transmigration of the human soul into animal bodies. Dr. Douglas Hyde has sent to me the following evidence. I have a poem, consisting of nearly 100 stanzas, about a pig who ate an Irish manuscript, and who by eating it recovered human speech for 24 hours and gave his master an account of his previous embodiments. He had been a right-hand man of Cromwell, a weaver in France, a subject of the Grand Signior, and the poem might be about 100 or 150 years old. It is probable that the poet who composed this poem intended to add a touch of modern Irish humor by making use of the pig. We should, nevertheless, bear in mind that the pig, or, as is more commonly the rule, the wild boar, holds a very curious and prominent position in the ancient mythology of Ireland, and of Wales as well. It was regarded as a magical animal, cf. p. 451n, and apparently was also a druid symbol, whose meaning we have lost. Possibly the poet may have been aware of this. If so, he does not necessarily imply transmigration of the human soul into animal bodies, but is merely employing symbolism. See Taliesin in the Mabinogion and the Book of Taliesin in Skene's 4 Ancient Books, I 523 ff. Cf. Nut Voy of Bran Roman 2, 84 and Rhŷs Hib. Lect, pp. 548-551. Cf. Rhŷs Hib. Lect, pp. 548-50. Cf. Rhŷs Hib. Lect, p. 259 and Arth. Leg, p. 252. Loth les Mabinogion, Culhuch et Alwyn, p. 187n. Le Mort d'Arthur, Book 21, c. Roman 7. See Works on Egyptian Mythology and Religion by Maspero. Also Lenormant, Chaldean Magic, p. 84 and c. F. L. Griffith, Stories of the High Priests of Memphis, Oxford, 1900, c. Roman 3. The text of this story is written on the back of 2 Greek documents, bearing the date of the 7th year of the Emperor Claudius, AD 46-7, not before published. It is interesting to compare with this episode the episodes of how the magic of St. Patrick prevailed over the magic of the Druids when the old and the new religions met in warfare on the hill of Tara, in the presence of the High King of Ireland and his court. E. A. Wallis Budge, The Gods of the Egyptians, London, 1904, p. 3. Prescott, Conquest of Mexico and Conquest of Peru. W. Crook, The Legends of Krishna in Folklore, Zi 23 ff. Laws of Manu, Roman 7, 8 trans by G. Buhler. A. B. Cook, European Sky God in Folklore, Roman 15, 301-4. Cf. Lucian Psalm, 17 and C. C. Tyler Prim. Cult, 4 Roman 2. 13, also Tertullian de Anima, c. Roman 28, where Pythagoras is described as having previously been Aethalides and Euphorbus and the fisherman Pyrrhus. Cf. Huck, Souvenirs d'un voyage dans la Tartarie et la Thibet, I 279 ff. The doctrine of kingly rule by divine right was substituted after the conversion of the Roman Empire for the very ancient belief that the emperor was a god incarnate, not necessarily reincarnate. And the same Christianized aspect of a pre-Christian doctrine stands behind the English kingship at the present day. A curious parallel to this Irish doctrine that through rebirth one suffers for the sins committed in a previous earth life is found in the Christian scriptures, where in asking Jesus about a man born blind, Rabbi, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? The disciple exhibits what must have been a popular Jewish belief in rebirth quite like the Celtic one. See St. John Roman 9, 1-2. Though the rabbis admitted the possibility of antenatal sin in thought, this passage seems to point unmistakably to a Jewish rebirth doctrine. It is interesting to note in connection with these 2 complementary ideas what has been written by Mr. Standish O'Grady concerning strange phenomena witnessed at the time of Charles Parnell's funeral. While his followers were committing Charles Parnell's remains to the earth, the sky was bright with strange lights and flames. Only a coincidence possibly, and yet persons not superstitious have maintained that there is some mysterious sympathy between the human soul and the elements. Those strange flames recalled to my memory what is told of similar phenomena said to have been witnessed when tidings of the death of the great Christian saint, Columba, overran the northwest of Europe, as perhaps truer than I had imagined, Ireland. Her story, pp. 211-12. Cf. M. Lenihan, Limerick. Its History and Antiquities, Dublin, 1866, p. 725. I take this to mean, somewhat as in the similar case of Ditch Tyre, the mother of Cuchulainn, CP 369. Above, that the kind of soul or character which will be reincarnated in the child is determined by the psychic prenatal conditions which a mother consciously or unconsciously may set up. If this interpretation, as it seems to be, is correct, we have in this Welsh belief a surprising comprehension of scientific laws on the part of the ancient Welsh Druids from whom the doctrine comes, which equals and surpasses in its subtlety the latest discoveries of our own psychological embryology, criminology, and so-called laws of heredity. The reader is referred to the Reverend T. M. Morgan's latest publication, The History and Antiquities of the Parish of Newchurch, Carmarthenshire, Carmarthen, 1910, pp. 155-6. I found, however, that the original rebirth doctrine has been either misinterpreted or else corrupted after Dr. Tyler's theory into transmigration into animal bodies among certain Cornish miners in the St. Just region. The primitive character of the incarnation doctrine is clear. Origen, in refuting a Jewish accusation against Christians, apparently the natural outgrowth of deep-seated hatred and religious prejudice on the part of the Jews, that Jesus Christ was born through the adultery of the Virgin with a certain soldier named Panthera, argues that every soul, for certain mysterious reasons, I speak now according to the opinions of Pythagoras, and Plato and Empedocles, whom Celsus frequently names, is introduced into a body, and introduced according to its deserts and former actions, and, according to Origen's argument, to assign to Jesus Christ a birth more disgraceful than any other is absurd, because he who sends souls down into the bodies of men would not have thus degraded him who was to dare such mighty acts, and to teach so many men, and to reform so many from the mass of wickedness in the world. And Origen adds, it is probable, therefore, that this soul also which conferred more benefit by its residence in the flesh than that of many men, to avoid prejudice, I do not say all, stood in need of a body not only superior to others, but invested with all excellence. Origen against Celsus, Book 1, see Roman 32. It is interesting to compare with Origen's theology the following passage from the Pistis Sophia, wherein Jesus in the alleged esoteric discourse to his disciples refers to the pre-existence of their souls. I took them from the hands of the 12 saviors of the treasure of light, according to the command of the first mystery. These powers, therefore, I cast into the wombs of your mothers, when I came into the world, and they are those which are in your bodies this day. Pistis Sophia, I Roman 2, Meade's translation. Cf. Nutvoy of Bran Roman 2, 27 ff, 45 ff, 54 ff, 98 1-2. Cf. Ib. p. 105. In this chapter, largely the result of my own special research and observations in Celtic archaeology, I wish to acknowledge the very valuable suggestions offered to me by Professor J. Loth, both in his lectures and personally. See David Macritchie, Fians, Fairies, and Picts, also his Testimony of Tradition. Myers in The Survival of the Human Personality, Roman 2, 55-6, shows that the departed spirit, long after death, seems preoccupied with the spot where his bones are laid. Among contemporary uncultured races, there exists a theory parallel to this one arrived at through careful scientific research, namely, that ghosts haunt graves and monuments connected with the dead. According to the Australian Arantu, the double hovers near its body until the body is reduced to dust, the spirit or soul of the deceased having separated from this double or ghost at the time of death or soon afterwards. Spencer and Gillen, Nat, Tribes of Scent. Ost. See Les Grots, T.I., Les Menhirs, Les Dolmens, Les Tumulus, and Cults et Observances Megalithiques, T. Roman 4. On April 17, 1909, at Carnac, in a natural fissure in the body of the finest menhir at the head of the alignment of Kermario, I found quite by chance, while making a very careful examination of the geological structure of the menhir, a Roman Catholic coin, or medal, of St. Peter. The place in the menhir where this coin was discovered is on the south side about 15 inches above the surface of the ground. The menhir is very tall and smoothly rounded, and there is no possible way for the coin to have fallen into the fissure by accident. Nor is there any probability that the coin was placed there without a serious purpose, and it is an object such as only an adult would possess. An examination of the link remaining on the coin, which no doubt formerly connected it with a necklace or string of prayer beads, shows that it has been purposely opened so as to free it at the time it was deposited in the stone. Had the coin been accidentally torn away from a chain or string of prayer beads, the link would have presented a different sort of opening. But it would be altogether unreasonable to suppose that by any sort of chance the coin could have reached the place where I found it. I showed the coin to M. Z. Rhüüs of the Carnac Museum, and he considers it, as I do, as evidence or proof of a cult rendered to stones here in Brittany. The coin must have been secretly placed in the menhir by some pious peasant as a direct ex voto for some favor received or demanded. The coin is somewhat discolored, and has probably been some years in the stone, though it cannot be very old. And the offering of a coin to the spirit residing in a menhir is parallel to throwing coins, pins, or other objects into sacred fountains, which, as we know, is an undisputed practice. Cf. A.C. Cruate, Het animisme in den Indischen archipel, quoted in Crawley's Idea of the Soul, p. 133. Cf. Weidemann, Ancient Egyptian Doct, Immortality, p. 21. Cf. Mahe Essay. Tyler Prim, Cult, 4 Roman 2, 143 ff, 169, 172. Merit the Threshold of Religion, ci. Mahe Essay, p. 230. A famous controversy exists as to whether the coronation stone now in Westminster Abbey is the Lia Fail, or whether the pillar stone still at Tara is the Lia Fail. See article by E. S. Hartland in Folklore, Roman 14, 2860. These idols probably were not true images, but simply unshaped stone pillars planted on end in the earth, and ought therefore more properly to be designated fetishes. Stokes in Rev Celt, I 260, Rhŷs Hib, Lect, pp. 201. Very much first-class evidence suggests that the menhir was regarded by the primitive Celts both as an abode of a god or as a seat of divine power, and as a phallic symbol, cf. Jubinville, Le Culte des Menhirs dans le Monde Celtique, in Rev Celt, Roman 27, 313. As a phallic symbol, the menhir must have been inseparably related to a Celtic sun cult. Because among all ancient peoples where phallic worship has prevailed, the sun has been venerated as the supreme masculine force in external nature from which all life proceeds, while the phallus has been venerated as the corresponding force in human nature. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 137. Professor J. Loth says, etymologiquement, le mot est composé de crom, curb, arc, formant cru, convex et de lech, pierre plate, Rev Celt, Roman 15, 223 Dolmen, Leechdirch, Pulvin, Menhir, Cromlech. In Cornwall, Wales, and Ireland, instead of the peculiarly Breton word dolmen, composed of dal, meaning table, and of men, meaning stone, the word cromlech is used. Cromlech is the Welsh equivalent for the Breton dolmen, but Breton archaeologists use cromlech to describe a circle formed by menhirs. Rhŷs Hib, Lect, pp. 193-4. Ib, p. 192, from Sandsmart's edition, pp. 108-9, 361. Ib, p. 193. Ib, pp. 194-5, cf. Bibliotheca of Diodorus Siculus, Roman 2, c. 47. Edith F. Carey, Channel Island Folklore, Guernsey, 1909. Mahe Essay, p. 198. Mahe Essay, pp. 287-9. The place for holding a gorsedd for modern Welsh initiations, under the authority of which the Eisteddfod is conducted, must also be within a circle of stones, face to face with the sun and the eye of light, as there is no power to hold a gorsedd under cover or at night, but only where and as long as the sun is visible in the heavens. Rhŷs Hib. Lect, pp. 208-9, from ILO MSS, p. 50. Recently, before the Oxford Anthropological Society, Dr. Murray argued that the satyrs of Greek drama may originally have been masked initiators in Greek initiations. Cf. The Oxford Magazine, February 3, 1910, p. 173. Edith F. Carey, Op. Cit. Mahe Essay, pp. 126-9. Mahe Essay, pp. 126-9. Rhŷs Arth, Leg, p. 339. Edith F. Carey, Op. Cit. Montelius, Les Temps Préhistoriques Ensued, Paris Rhŷs, p. 126. Paris, 1895. H. Schliemann, Mycenae, London, 1878, p. 213. Walhouse in Jern, Anthrop. Inst, Romans 7, 21. These Dravidians are slightly taller than the pure Negritos, their probable ancestors, and Indian tradition considers them to be the builders of the Indian dolmens, just as Celtic tradition considers fairies and corrigans, often described as dark or even black-skinned dwarfs, to be the builders of dolmens and megaliths among the Celts. Apparently, in such folk traditions, which correctly or incorrectly regard fairies, corrigans, or Dravidians as the builders of ancient stone monuments, there has been preserved a folk memory of early races of men who may have been Negritos, pygmy blacks. These races, through a natural anthropomorphic process, came to be identified with the spirits of the dead and with other spiritual beings to whom the monuments were dedicated, and at which they were worshipped. Here again, the pygmy theory is seen at its true relative value. It is subordinate to the fundamental animism of the fairy faith. J. Deschillet, Manuel d'Archéologie Préhistorique, Paris, 1908, I. 468, 302, 308, 311, 576, 610, and c. This famous chambered tumulus measures nearly 700 feet in circumference, or about 225 feet in diameter, and between 40 and 50 feet in height. G. Coffey in RL. Acad. Trans XXX 68. G. Coffey in RL. Acad. Trans XXX 7392. Fall 190b. Trans O'Curry Lectures p. 505. Mr. Coffey quotes from the Senchus Narelec in LU this significant passage: "The nobles of the Tuatha De Danann were used to bury at Brug, i.e. the Dagda with his 3 sons, also Lugaid, and O, and Alam, and Ogma, and Eton the poetess, and Corpor, the son of Eton." G. Coffey, Op. Cit. XXX. 77. The manuscript, however, being late and directly under Christian influence, echoes but imperfectly very ancient Celtic tradition. The immortal god race are therein rationalized by the transcribers and made subject to death. W. C. Borlase, Dolmens of Ireland, London, 1897, Roman 2, 346n. As translated in the Silva Gaelica, Roman 2, 10911. Borlase Op. Cit. Roman 2, 346-7n. Borlase Op. Cit. Roman 2, 346-7n. Ib. Roman 2, 347n. A good example of a saint's stone bed can be seen now at Glendalough, the stone bed of St. Kevin, high above a rocky shore of the lake. Coffey Op. Cit. XXX. 73-4 from R.I.A. Ms. by Michael O'Longan, dated 1810, p10, and translated by Douglas Hyde. Coffey Op. Cit. Roman 25. 73-4 from R.I.A. Ms. by Michael O'Longan, dated 1810, p10, and trans by Douglas Hyde. Borlase Op. Cit. Roman 2, 347n. O'Donovan, 4 Masters, I22n. Rhŷs Hib. Lect. pp. 14850. Cf. O'Curry, Manners and Customs, Roman 2, 122, Roman 3. 574 122 Rhŷs Hib. Lect. pp. 150-150n, Jubainville S.I. Dunn Catalog, p. 244. Rhŷs Hib. Lect. p. 194. Math Ob Mathanwi's Irish counterpart is Math Mac Umwar, The Magician Book of Leinster, F9b, cf. Rhŷs trans 3rd inter, Cong. Hist. Religions, Oxford 1908 Roman 2, 211. Rhŷs Ib. pp. 225-6, cf. R.B. Mabinogion p. 60, Triads I, 32 Roman 2, 20 Roman 3, 90. A fortified hilltop now known as Pen y Gair, or Hill of the Fortress, on the western side of the Conway, on a mountain within sight of the railway station of Tal y Caffin, Carnarvonshire, is regarded by Sir John Rhys as the site of a long-forgotten cult of Math the Ancient. Rhŷs Ib. p. 225. This stone basin, now in the center of the inner chamber, seems originally to have stood in the east recess, the largest and most richly inscribed. It is 4 feet long, 3 feet 6 inches across, and 1 foot thick. Coffey Op. Cit. XXX. 1421. Cf. W. M. Flinders Petrie, The Pyramids and Temples of Guise, London, 1883, p. 201. All of the chief megaliths of this type, together with the chief alignments, which I have personally inspected with the aid of a compass in Ireland, Scotland, Isle of Man, Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany, are definitely aligned east and west. It cannot be said, however, that all megalithic monuments throughout Celtic countries show definite orientation. See Deschillet's Manual d'Archaeology. L. P. McCarty, The Great Pyramid Gs, San Francisco, 1907, p. 402. Jubainville, Le Cycle Myth, Earl, p. 28. Maspero, Les Contes Populaires de l'Égypte Ancien 3, p. 74n. Tyler Prim, Cult, 4 Roman 2, 426. W. H. Prescott, Conquest of Peru, IC 3. Rochefort, Isles Antilles, p. 365, cf. Tyler, P.C., 4 Roman 2, 424. Colebrook Essays Vols, I Roman 4 v, cf. Tyler, P.C., 4 425. Illouz, Hist, and Pract. Of Thugs, London, 1837, p. 46, cf. Tyler, P.C., 4 Roman 2, 425. Augustin de Serme, Dom, in Monte, Roman 2, 5, cf. Tyler, P.C., 4 Roman 2, 427-8. Ezek, Roman 8, 16. The popular opinion that Christians face the east in prayer, or have altars eastward because Jerusalem is eastward, does not fit in with facts. Cf. Lenormant, Chaldean Magic, p. 88, also Tyler, Prim Cult, 4 Roman 2, 48-9. Though not a Mason, the writer draws his knowledge from Masons of the highest rank, and from published works by Masons like Mr. Carty's The Great Pyramid Gs. Cf. Borlase, Dolmens of Ireland, Roman 2, 347n. C. Piazzi Smythe, Our Inheritance in the Great Pyramid, London, 1890. Flinders Petrie, The Pyramids and Temples of Gizeh, pp. 169-222. C. Piazzi Smythe, Op. Cit. In 1770, when New Grange apparently was not covered with a growth of trees as now, Governor Pownall visited it and described it as like a pyramid in general outline. The pyramid in its present state is but a ruin of what it was. Coffee, Op. Cit. XXX. 13. Le Docteur Giudici, Lochmariacaret Gavrinas, Vans, 1876, p. 18. According to Le Docteur Giudici, Op. Cit. p. 18. Mr. Coffey says of similar details in Irish tumuli. In the construction of such chambers, it is usual to find a sort of sill or low stone placed across the entrance into the main chamber, and at the openings into the smaller chambers or recesses. Such stones also occur laid at intervals across the bottom of the passages. This forms a marked feature in the construction at Douth and in the cairns on the Loughgrew Hills, but is wholly absent at New Grange, Op. Cit. XXX. 15. New Grange, however, has suffered more or less from vandalism, and originally may have contained similar stone sills. Flinders Petrie, The Pyramids and Temples of Gizeh, p. 216. Maspero, Op. Cit. p. 69n, and see the worldwide anthropomorphic tendency to construct tombs for the gods and for the dead after the plan of earthly dwellings is as evident in the excavations at Mycenae as in ancient Egypt and in Celtic lands. Cf. Bruns, Canons Apostolorum et Conciliarum Saeculorum, Roman 2, 133. Cf. F. Mawson, Concilia Evi Merovingici, p. 133. Cf. Boredeus, Capitularia Regum Francorum, I. 59, for each of the above references. Cf. Jubainville, Le Culte des Menhirs dans le Monde Celtique, in Rev. Celt, Roman 27, 317. Cf. Mahe, Essay, p. 427. C. Villemarqué sur Bretagne. Cf. Mahe, Essay, p. 326, quoted from de Glore. Conf. C2. Cf. Mahe, Essay, p. 326, quoted from de Glore. Conf. C2. Cf. Mahe, Essay, p. 326, quoted from Goth. Lib. Roman 2. A. W. Moore, in Folklore, v. 212-29. Cf. Rhŷs, Arthurian Legend, p. 247. Borlase, Dolmens of Ireland, Roman 3, 729. Stokes, Tripartite Life of Patrick, pp. 99-101. Ib. Text pp. 123, 323 and Intro, p. 159. Book 2, 6970. CR Study, p. 267. Rents Dinchenches, Stokes's Trans in Rev Celt, Roman 15, 457. Cf. Mahe, Essay, p. 323. The Celts may have viewed the mistletoe on the sacred oak as the seat of the tree's life, because in the winter sleep of the leafless oak, the mistletoe still maintains its own foliage and fruit, and like the heart of a sleeper, continues pulsing with vitality. The mistletoe, thus being regarded as the heart center of the divine spirit in the oak tree, was cut with a golden sickle by the archdruid clad in pure white robes amid great religious solemnity, and became a vicarious sacrifice or atonement for the worshippers of the tree god. Cf. Fraser, G.B. 2, Roman 3, 447 ff. Pliny Nat. Hist. Roman 16, 95 cf. Rhŷs Hib. Lect. p. 218. Desert Roman 8 cf. Rhŷs Ib. p. 219. Manex ed. Roman 12. 5 1 cf. Rhŷs Ib. p. 219. The oak tree is preeminently the holy tree of Europe. Not only Celts but Slavs worshipped amid its groves. To the Germans it was their chief god. The ancient Italians honored it above all other trees. The original image of Jupiter on the Capitol at Rome seems to have been a natural oak tree. So at Dodona, Zeus was worshipped as immanent in a sacred oak. Cf. Fraser, G.B. 2 Roman 3, 346 ff. Cf. Mahe Sipp. 333-4 quotation from Hist. Dumaine, I. 17. Cf. Mahe Sipp. 334 quoted from Lib. Roman 7 indite, I. Epist. 5. Stokes Tripartite Life, p. 409. Cf. Wood Martin, Traces of the Older Faiths in Ireland, I. 305. W. Gregor, Notes on Beltane Cakes in Folklore Roman 6, 5. Temple, Legends of the Panjab, in Folklore, X 406. Lefevre Le Culte des Morts chez les Latins in Rev Trad, Pop, Roman 9, 195-09. See Folklore Roman 6, 192. The term people of peace seems, however, to have originated from confounding Cid, fairy abode, and Cid, peace. Cf. Le Cycle Myth, Earl, p. 102. The crocodile as the mystic symbol of Sidhu provides one key to unlock the mysteries of what eminent Egyptologists have erroneously called animal worship, erroneously because they have interpreted literally what can only be interpreted symbolically. The crocodile is called the son of Sidhu in the Papyrus Magique Harris, PL Roman 6, LL 8-9, cf. Maspero Les Contes Populaires de l'Égypte Ancien Intro. p. 56. And as the waters seem to swallow the sun as it sinks below the horizon, so the crocodile, as Sidhu representing the waters, swallows the children of Osiris, as the Egyptians called themselves. On the other hand, Osiris is typified by the white bull, in many nations the sun emblem, white being the emblem of purity and light, while the powers of the bull represent the masculinity of the sun, which impregnates all nature, always thought of as feminine, with life germs. Cf. Maspero op. Cit. Intro, p. 49. Cf. Borlase, Dolmens of Ireland, Roman 3, 854. Cf. Lefevre Rev Trad, Pop, Roman 9, 195-09. J. G. Campbell collected in Scotland two versions of a parallel episode, but concerning Loch Lurgan. In both versions, the flight begins by Fionn's foster mother carrying Fionn, and in both, when she is tired, Fionn carries her and runs so fast that when the loch is reached, only her shanks are left. These he throws out on the loch, and hence its name Loch Lurgan, Lake of the Shanks. The Fians, pp. 1819. During the 17th century, the English government, acting through its Dublin representatives, ordered this original cave or purgatory to be demolished. And with the temporary suppression of the ceremonies which resulted and the consequent abandonment of the island, the cave, which may have been filled up, has been lost. Thomas Wright, St. Patrick's Purgatory, London, 1844, pp. 67-8. Wright op. Cit. p. 69. In the face of all the legends told of pilgrims who have been in Patrick's Purgatory, it seems that either through religious frenzy like that produced in Protestant revivals, or else through some strange influence due to the cave itself, after the preliminary disciplines, some of the pilgrims have had most unusual psychic experiences. Those who have experienced fasting and a rigorous life for a prescribed period affirm that there results a changed condition, physical, mental, and spiritual, so that it is very probable that the Christian pilgrims to the purgatory, like the pagan pilgrims who fasted on the Tuatha De Danann in Newgrange, were in good condition to receive impressions of a psychical nature, such as the Society for Psychical Research is beginning to believe are by no means rare to people susceptible to them. Neophytes seeking initiation among the ancients had to undergo even more rigorous preparations than these, for they were expected while entranced to leave their physical bodies and in reality enter the purgatorial state, as we shall presently have occasion to point out. Wright, St. Patrick's Purgatory, pp. 62 ff. L. R. Farnell, Cults of the Greek States, Oxford, 1907, Roman 3, 126-98 and c. Cf. Athenaeus 614 a Aristoph, Nubbs 508 and Harper's Dict, Class, Lit. and Antic, p. 1615. Cf. O. Seifert Dict, Class, Antiquities Trans, London 1895, Mithras. Brasseur Mexique Roman 3, 20 and c. Tyler P.C., 4 Roman 2, 45. Cf. Hutton Webster, Primitive Secret Societies, New York 1908, p. 38 and Passim. In the ancient Greek world, the annual celebration of the Mysteries drew great concourses of people from all regions round the Mediterranean. To the modern Breton world, the chief religious pardons are annual events of such supreme importance that, after preparing plenty of food for the pilgrimage, the whole family of a pious peasant of Lower Brittany will desert farm and work dressed in their beautiful and best costumes for one of these pardons. The most picturesque, the most inspiring, and the highest folk festivals still preserved by the Roman Church. While to Roman Catholics in all countries, a pilgrimage to Lough Derg is the sacred event of a lifetime. In the Breton pardons, as in the purgatorial rites, we seem to see the survivals of very ancient Celtic mysteries, strikingly like the mysteries of Eleusis. The greatest of the pardons, the pardon of Saint Anne d'Auray, will serve as a basis for comparison. And while in some respects it has had a recent and definitely historical origin, or revival, this origin seems on the evidence of archaeology to have been a restoration, an expansion, and chiefly a Christianization of prehistoric rites then already partly fallen into decay. Such rites remained latent in the folk memory, and were originally celebrated in honor of the sacred fountain, and probably also of Isis and the child, whose terracotta image was plowed up in a neighboring field by the famous peasant Nicholas, and naturally regarded by him and all who saw it as of Saint Anne and the Holy Child. Thus, in the pardon of Saint Anne d'Auray, which extends over 3 days, there is a torchlight procession at night under ecclesiastical sanction, as in the series Mysteries, wherein the neophytes with torches kindled sought all night long for Proserpine. There are purification rites, not especially under ecclesiastical sanction, at the holy fountain now dedicated to Saint Anne, like the purification rites of the Eleusinian worshippers at the seashore and their visit to a holy well. There are mystery plays, recently instituted, as in Greek initiation ceremonies, sacred processions, led by priests, bearing the image of Saint Anne and other images, comparable to Greek sacred processions in which the god Acos was borne on the way to Eleusis. The all-night services in the dimly lighted church of Saint Anne, with the special masses in honor of the Christian saints and for the dead, are parallel to the midnight ceremonies of the Greeks in their caves of initiation and to the libations to the gods and to the spirits of the departed at Greek initiations. Finally, in the Greek mysteries there seems to have been some sort of expository sermon or exhortation to the assembled neophytes, quite comparable to the special appeal made to the faithful Catholics assembled in the magnificent church of Saint Anne d'Auray by the bishops and high ecclesiastics of Brittany. For these classical parallels compare Farnell, Cults of the Greek States, Roman 3, Passim. Cf. Rhŷs, Lect, p. 411 and c. O'Curry Lectures pp. 586-7. There is this very significant legend on record about the cave of Cruachan. Mog Muckrim now, pigs of magic came out of the cave of Cruachan, and that is Ireland's gate of hell. And out of it also came the red birds that withered up everything in Erin that their breath would touch, till the Ulstermen slew them with their slings. B of Leinster, p. 288a, Stokes's trans, in Rev Celt, Roman 13, 449, cf. Silva Gaedlica, Roman 2, 353. Forbes, Lives of S. Ninian and S. Kentigern, Edinburgh, 1874, pp. 285, 345. Cf. Wright St. Patrick's Purgatory, pp. 81-2. Cf. Godescard Vies des Saints, Zi 24, also Bergier Dict, de Théal, v 405. Cf. Godescard Vies des Saints, Zi 32. But there is some disagreement in this matter of dates. Petrus Damianus, Vita S., Odolanus in the Bollandist Acta Sanctorum, January 1, records a legend of how the abbot Odilon decreed that November 2, the day after All Saints' Day, should be set apart for services for the departed. Cf. Tyler Prim. Cult, 4 Roman 2, 37n. Cf. Godescard Vies des Saints, Zi 1n. Part 2 Sec 4 C4 par, 8 cf. Bergier Dict de Théal, Roman 4, 322. P11a, L19, in Stokes's Tripartite Life Intro, p. 194. Enchiridion, Chapter CX, Testament of Saint Ephrem, ed. Vatican, Roman 2, 230-236, Euseb de Vita Constant, Liv, Roman 4 CLX, 556 CLXX, 562, cf. Godescard Vies des Saints, Zi 31. Saint Ambrose de Abitu Theodosii, Roman 2, 1197, cf. Godescard Vies des Saints, Zi 31n. Cf. Godescard Vies des Saints, Zi 31-2. I am indebted to Mr. William MacDougall, M.A., whilst a reader in mental philosophy in the University of Oxford, for having read through and criticized the first draft of this section. And while he is in no way responsible for the views set forth herein, nevertheless his suggestions for the improvement of their scientific framework have been of very great value. I must also express my obligation to him for having suggested through his Oxford lectures a good share of the important material interwoven into Chapter 12, touching the vitalistic view of evolution. Cf. C. Duprel, Philosophy of Mysticism, London, 1889, I 711. T. Ribat, The Diseases of Personality, cf. J. L. Nevius, Demon Possession, London, 1897, pp. 234-5. Proc. SPR, London, v. 167, cf. A. Lang, Making of Religion, p. 64. W. James, Confidences of a Psychical Researcher, in American Magazine, October 1909. A. Lang, Cock Lane and Common Sense, London, 1896, p. 35. According to Professor Freud, the well-known neurologist of Vienna, external stimuli are not admitted to the dream consciousness in the same manner that they would be admitted to the waking consciousness, but they are disguised and altered in particular ways, cf. S. Freud, Die Traumdeutung, 2nd ed., Vienna, 1909, and S. Ferenczi, The Psychological Analysis of Dreams in Amer. Journ. Psych, April 1910 No. 2 Roman 21, 318 and c. Duprel op. Cit. I 135. G. F. Stout, Mr. F. W. Myers on Human Personality and Its Survival of Bodily Death, in Hibbert Journal, Roman 2, No. 1, London, October 1903, p. 56. F. W. H. Myers, Human Personality and Its Survival of Bodily Death, London, 1903, I 131. R. L. Stevenson, Across the Plains, Chapter on Dreams. Stout op. Cit. p. 54. Freud op. Cit. Ferenczi op. Cit. E. Jones, Freud's Theory of Dreams in Amer. Journ. Psych. April 1910, No. 2 Roman 21, 280-3308. Freud, The Origin and Development of Psychoanalysis, in Amer. Journ. Psych. April 1910, No. 2 Roman 21, 203. Duprel op. Cit. I 33. Myers op. Cit. I 134. Fechner Zentralblatt für Anthropology, p. 774, cf. Duprel op. Cit. I 92. Haddock Somnambulism and Psychism, p. 213, cf. Duprel op. Cit. I 93. Purdy Mystisch Erscheinungen I 305, cf. Duprel op. Cit. Roman 2. 63. Kerner Seherin v. Prevorst P 196, cf. Duprel op. Cit. Roman 2. 65. Chartal Essay de Psychology P 344, cf. Duprel op. Cit. Roman 2. 64. Cf. Duprel op. Cit. I 889. Myers op. Cit. Chapter 6. Stout op. Cit. pp. 64-61-2. Lang, Mr. Myers's Theory of the Subliminal Self, in Hibbert Journal Roman 2, No. 3, April 1904, p. 530. The peculiar and often unique characteristics of the fairy folk of any given fairy faith, as we have pointed out in Chapter 3, pp. 233, 282, are to be regarded as being merely anthropomorphically colored reflections of the social life or environment of the particular ethnic group who hold the particular fairy faith. And, as Mr. Lang here suggests, when they are stripped of these superficial characteristics, which are due to such social psychology, they become ghosts of the dead or other spiritual beings. Our own researches lead us to the conviction that behind the purely mythical aspect of these fairy faiths, there exists a substantial substratum of real phenomena not yet satisfactorily explained by science. That such phenomena have been in the past, and are at the present time the chief source of the belief in fairies, that they are the foundation underlying all fairy mythologies. We need only refer to the following phenomena observed among Celtic and other peoples, and attributed by them to fairy or spirit agency. 1. Music which competent percipients believe to be of non-human origin, and hence by the Celts called fairy music, whether this be vocal or instrumental in sound. 2. The movement of objects without known cause. 3. Rappings and other noises called supernatural, cf. pp. 81n, 481-488, also pp. 47, 57, 61, 67, 71, 72, 74, 88, 94, 98, 101, 120, 124, 125, 131, 132, 134, 139, 148, 156, 172, 181, 187, 213. 218, 220 and c. It is our hope that this book will help to lessen the marked deficiency of recorded testimony concerning fairy beings and fairy phenomena observed by reliable percipients. We have endeavored to demonstrate that genuine fairy phenomena and genuine spirit phenomena are in most cases identical. Hence we believe that if spirit phenomena are worthy of the attention of science, equally so are fairy phenomena. The fairy belief in its typical or conventional aspects, apart from the animism which we discovered at the base of the belief is, as was pointed out in our anthropological examination of the evidence, pp. 281-2, due to a very complex social psychology. In this chapter, we have eliminated all social psychology as not being the essential factor in the fairy faith. Therefore, from our point of view, Mr. Lang's implied explanation of the typical fairy visions, that they are due to suggestion acting on the subconscious self, does not apply to the rarer kind of fairy visions which form part of our X quantity, CPP. 66, 83-4 and c. If it does, then it also applies to all non-Celtic visions of spirits, in ancient and in modern times, and the animistic hypothesis now accepted by most psychical researchers, namely, that discarnate intelligences exist independent of the percipient, must be set aside in favor of the non-animistic hypothesis. If, on the other hand, it be admitted that fairy phenomena are, as we maintain, essentially the same as spirit phenomena, then the belief in fairies ceases to be purely mythical, and fairy visions by a Celtic seer who is physically and psychically sound do not seem to arise from that seer's suggestion acting on his own subconsciousness. But certain types of fairy visions undoubtedly do arise from suggestion, coming from a fairy or other intelligence, acting on the conscious or subconscious content of the percipient's mind, cf. pp. 480-47. Lang, Cochlane, and Common Sense pp. 208-35. Sir Oliver Lodge, Psychical Research in Harper's Mag, August 1908, New York and London. Sir Oliver Lodge, The Survival of Man, London, 1909, p. 339. James Opp, Sit, pp. 587-9. Readers are referred to such authoritative works as The Phantasms of the Living, London, 1886, by Gurney, Myers, and Podmore, to the Report on the Census of Hallucinations of Modern Spiritualism by Professor Sidgwick's Committee, to The Naturalization of the Supernatural, New York and London, 1908, by F. Podmore, to The Survival of the Human Personality by F. W. H. Myers, and other like works, all of which originate from the Proceedings of the Society for Psychical Research, London. C. Flammarion, Mysterious Psychic Forces, pp. 441-431. Sir W. M. Crookes, Notes of an Inquiry into Phenomena Called Spiritual, during the years 1870-73, London, Part 3, p. 87. Seacourt, Journ. Science, July 1871. Cf. Lang, Cock Lane and Common Sense, p. 281, and for other cases of objects moved without contact see Ib. pp. 50, 52, 53, 58, 122 ff. See also F. Podmore's article on poltergeists in Proceedings S.P.R. Roman 12, 45-115, and his Naturalization of the Supernatural, Chapter 7. Sir W. M. Crookes Opp. Sit, Part 3, p. 100. Ibs. p. 94. Lang, Cock Lane and Common Sense, pp. 60, 81, 139 and c. Using as a basis the data of Professor Sidgwick's Committee and the results earlier obtained by Gurney, Myers, and Podmore, see Phantasms of the Living, Mr. William MacDougall shows concisely the probability of an apparition appearing within 12 hours of the death of the individual whom it represents. He says, of all recognized apparitions of living persons, only 1 in 19,000 may be expected to be a death coincidence of this sort. But the census shows that of 1,300 recognized apparitions of living persons, 30 are death coincidences, and that is equivalent to 440 in 19,000. Hence, of recognized hallucinations, those coincident with death are 440 times more numerous than we should expect if no causal relation obtained. And Mr. MacDougall concludes, since good evidence of telepathic communication has been experimentally obtained, the least improbable explanation of these death apparitions is that the dying person exerts upon his distant friend some telepathic influence which generates an hallucinatory perception of himself. Hallucinations, in and Sci. Brit. 11th ed. Roman 12. 863. Myers Opp. Sit. Roman 2. 65, 45 ff, 49 ff, and c. Nevius, Demon Possession, Introduction, pp. Roman 4, Roman 7, pp. 242, 144-5. In accordance with all such phenomena, psychical researchers have logically called spirits manifesting themselves through the body of a living person possessing spirits. And as in the case of Chinese demon possession, the phenomena of mediumship often result in the moral derangement, insanity, or even suicide on the part of mediums, who so unwisely exhibit it without special preparation or no preparation at all, and too often in complete ignorance of a possible gradual undermining of their psychic life, willpower, and even physical health. All of this seems to offer direct and certain evidence to sustain Christians and non-Christians in their condemnation of all forms of necromancy or calling up of spirits. The following statement will make our position towards mediumship of the most common kind clear. In Druidism, for one example, disciples for training in magical sciences are said to have spent 20 years in severe study and special psychical training before deemed fit to be called Druids, and thus to control demons, ghosts, or all invisible entities capable of possessing living men and women. And even now in India and elsewhere, there is reported to be still the same ancient course of severe disciplinary training for candidates seeking magical powers. But in modern spiritualism, conditions are altogether different in most cases, and mediums, instead of controlling with an iron will, as a magician does, spirits which become manifest in seances surrender entirely their willpower and whole personality to them. Cf. Sigmund Freud, The Origin and Development of Psychoanalysis in Amer. Journ. Psych. Roman 21, No. 2, April 1910. The fact that all matter is capable of assuming a gaseous or invisible state furnishes good scientific reasons for postulating the actual existence of intelligent beings possessed of an invisible yet physical body. There may well be on and about our planet many distinct invisible organic life forms undiscovered by zoologists. To deny such a possibility would be unscientific. Cf. Communication adressée au Dr. J. Dupré, p. 382 of an essay on la métempsychose basée sur les principes de la biologie et du magnétisme physiologique, in La Hazard, Paris, 1909, by P. C. Revel. Cases of regeneration among the aged are known, and these show how the subliminal life forces try to renew the physical body when it is worn out. Cf. Revel, Ib. p. 372. Cf. Revel op. Cit. p. 295 ff. If scientists discover, as they probably will in time, what they call the secret of life, they will not have discovered the secret of life at all. What they will have discovered will be the physical conditions under which life manifests itself. In other words, science will most likely soon be able to set up artificially in a laboratory such physical conditions as exist in nature naturally, and by means of which life is able to manifest itself through matter. Life will still be as great a mystery as it is today, though short-sighted materialists are certain to announce to an eager world that the final problem of the universe has been solved, and that life is merely the resultant of a subtle chemical compound. Professor Freud, after long and careful study, arrived at the following conclusion. The child has his sexual impulse and activities from the beginning, he brings them with him into the world, and from these the so-called normal sexuality of adults emerges by a significant development through manifold stages. And Dr. Sanford Bell, in an earlier writing entitled A Preliminary Study of the Emotions of Love Between the Sexes, see Amer. Journ. Psych. 1902, came to a similar conclusion. Cf. Freud op. Cit. pp. 207-8. Cf. Hans Dries, The Science and Philosophy of the Organism, London, 1908, and Henry Bergson, L'Evolution Créatrice, Paris, 1908. This Celtic view of non-personal immortality completely fits in with all the voluminous data of psychical research. After 40 years of scientific research into psychics, there are no proofs yet adduced that the human personality as a self-sufficient unit of consciousness survives indefinitely the death of its body. Granted that it does survive as a ghost for an undetermined period, generally to be counted in years, during which time it seems to be gradually fading out or disintegrating, there is no reliable evidence anywhere to show that a personality as such has manifested through a medium or otherwise after an interval of 1,000 years, or even of 500 years. We have, in fact, no knowledge of the survival of a human personality 100 years after, and probably there are no good examples of such a survival 25 years after the death of the body. Such an eminent psychical researcher as William James recognized this drift of the data of psychics, and when he died, he held the conviction that there is no personal immortality. CP 505 and following. Though not inclined toward the vitalistic view of human evolution, M.Th. Ribot very closely approaches the Celtic view of the ego, or individuality, as being the principle which gives unity to different personalities, but he does not have in mind personalities in the sense implied by the Celtic esoteric doctrine of rebirth. The ego subjectively considered consists of a sum of conscious states, comparable to personalities. In brief, the ego may be considered in two ways, either in its actual form, and then it is the sum of existing conscious states, or in its continuity with the past, and then it is formed by the memory according to the process outlined above. It would seem, according to this view, that the identity of the ego depended entirely upon the memory. But such a conception is only partial. Beneath the unstable compound phenomenon in all its protean phases of growth, degeneration, and reproduction, there is a something that remains, and this something is the undefined consciousness, the product of all the vital processes, constituting bodily perception and what is expressed in one word: the coanesthesis. The Diseases of Memory, pp. 107-8. William James, the greatest psychologist of our epoch, after a long and faithful life consecrated to the search after a true understanding of human consciousness, finally arrived at substantially the same conviction as Fechner did, that there is no personal immortality, but that the personality is but a temporary and partial separation and circumscription of a part of a larger whole, into which it is reabsorbed at death. W. McDougall, In Memory of William James, in Proc. S.P.R. Part 62, Volume Roman 25, p. 28. He thus virtually accepted the mystic's view that the personality after the death of the body is absorbed into a higher power, which, to our mind, is comparable with the ego conceived as the unifying principle behind personalities. In one of his last writings, James explained his belief in such a manner as to make it coincide at certain points with the view held by modern Celtic mystics, which has been presented above. The difference being that, unlike these mystics, James was not prepared to say, though he raised the question, whether or not behind the mother sea of consciousness there is, as Fechner believed, a hierarchy of consciousnesses, themselves subordinate to still higher consciousnesses, and comparable with so many egos or individualities, which send out emanations as temporary human personalities. The organic psychical forms, if we may use such an expression, of such temporary human personalities would have to be regarded from James's point of view as being built up out of the psychical elements constituting the mother sea of consciousness, just as the human body is built up out of the physical elements in the realm of matter. Out of my experience, such as it is, and it is limited enough, one fixed conclusion dogmatically emerges, and that is this: that we with our lives are like islands in the sea or like trees in the forest. The maple and the pine may whisper to each other with their leaves, and Connecticut and Newport hear each other's foghorns. But the trees also commingle their roots in the darkness underground, and the islands also hang together through the ocean's bottom. Just so there is a continuum of cosmic consciousness, against which our individuality, used as synonymous with personality and not in our distinct sense, builds but accidental fences, and into which our several minds plunge as into a mother sea or reservoir. Our normal consciousness, the personality as we distinguish it from the ego or individuality, is circumscribed for adaptation to our external earthly environment, but the fence is weak in spots, and fitful influences from beyond break in, showing the otherwise unverifiable common connection. Not only psychic research, but metaphysical philosophy and speculative biology are led in their own ways to look with favor on some such panpsychic view of the universe as this. W. James, The Confidences of a Psychical Researcher, in the American Magazine, October 1909. Again, James wrote, "The drift of all the evidence we have seems to me to sweep us very strongly towards the belief in some form of superhuman life with which we may, unknown to ourselves, be co-conscious." A Pluralistic Universe, New York, 1909, p. 309. W. James, Varieties of Religious Experience, London, 1902, pp. 511-236n. M.T.H. Ribot in Diseases of Memory, London, 1882, pp. 82-98 ff. gives numerous examples of such loss and recovery of memory. Cf. Freud op. Cit. pp. 192, 245 and c. Cf. Amal, Hypnotism, London, 1890, pp. 141 ff. 126. Cf. Amal, Hypnotism, London, 1890, pp. 141 ff. 126. Cf. Freud op. Cit. p. 192. Freud, Die Traumdeutung, 2nd ed. Vienna, 1906. Cf. S. Ferenczi, The Psychological Analysis of Dreams in Amer, Journs Psych. April 1910, Roman 21, No. 2, p. 326. A similar state of high development is to be assumed for a great Celtic hero like Arthur, who, were he to be reborn, would, as is said to have been the case with King Mongan, the reincarnation of Finn, bring with him memory of his past. Unlike the consciousness of the normal man, the consciousness of one of the divine ones is normally the subconsciousness, the consciousness of the individuality, and not the personal consciousness, which, like the personality, is non-permanent in itself. This further illustrates the Celtic theory of non-personal immortality. Ribot op. Cit. p. 100 ff. Cf. Lang, Cock Lane and Common Sense, pp. 217 ff. Blackwood's Magazine, CX6, January 1881, contains a remarkable account of a child who remembered previous lives. Lord Lindsay, in his letters ed. of 1847, p. 351, refers to a feeling when he beheld the river Kadisha descending from Lebanon, of having in a previous life seen the same scene. Dickens in his pictures from Italy testifies to a parallel experience. E.D. Walker, in his interesting work on reincarnation, pp. 42-5, has brought together many other well-attested cases of people who likewise have thought they could remember fragments of a former state of conscious existence. In his diary under date of February 17, 1828, Sir Walter Scott wrote as follows: "I cannot, I am sure, tell if it is worth marking down that yesterday at dinner time I was strangely haunted by what I would call the sense of pre-existence, viz., a confused idea that nothing that passed was said for the first time." Lockhart, Life of Scott, 1st ed., Roman 7, 114. Bulwer Lytton in Godolphin, Chapter 15, and Edgar Allan Poe in Eureka record similar experiences. Mr. H. Fielding Hall in The Soul of a People 4, London, 1902, pp. 293, 8, reports several very remarkable cases of responsible natives of Burma who stated that they could recall former lives passed by them as men and women. Mr. Hall has carefully investigated these cases and gives us the impression that they are worthy of scientific consideration. Cf. Ferenczi, Op. Cit. p. 316, and see Professor Freud's theory of dreams supports entirely, but does not imply our hypothesis that some, and probably many, abnormal dreams of a rare kind, whether good or bad in tendency, may be due to the latent content of subconsciousness, out of which they undoubtedly arise, having been collected and carried over from a previous state of consciousness parallel to our present one. In respect to our present life, Professor Freud holds, as a result of psychoanalysis of thousands of dream subjects, that the latent content of every dream in the adult is directly dependent upon mental processes which frequently reach back to the earliest childhood, and he gives detailed cases in illustration. In other words, there is always a latent dream material behind the conscious dream content, and probably a part of it was innate in the child at birth, and hence, according to our view, was pre-existent. Cf. Ernest Jones, Freud's Theory of Dreams in Amer, Journ. Psych. April 1910, Roman 21, No. 2, pp. 301 ff. Cf. Duprel, Philosophy of Mysticism, Roman 2, 25 ff, 34 ff. The Dream of Raven in Dublin Univ. Mag, Roman 43, 468. Myers in Proc, SPR Roman 7, 305. James, Varieties of Religious Experience, p. 483. The esoteric teaching in many of the mystic schools of antiquity was that the atoms of each human body transmigrate through all lower forms of life during the long period, supposed to intervene between death and rebirth of the individuality. This doctrine seems to be one of the main sources of the corruption which crept into the ancient rebirth doctrines, and transformed many of them into doctrines of transmigration of the human soul into animal and plant bodies. And some unscrupulous priesthoods openly taught such corrupted doctrines as a means of making the ignorant populace submissive to ecclesiastical rule. The theological theory expounded by such priesthoods being that the evildoer, but not the keeper of the letter of the canonical law, is condemned to expiate his sins through birth in brute bodies. The pure form of the mystic doctrine was that after the lapse of the long period of disembodiment, the individuality reconstructs its human body anew by drawing to itself the identical atoms which constituted its previous human body, these atoms, and not the individuality, having transmigrated through all the lower kingdoms. Such an esoteric doctrine probably lies behind the exoteric Egyptian, teaching that the human soul after the death of its body passes through all plant and animal bodies during a period of 3,000 years, after which it returns to human embodiment. Some scholars have held that the exoteric interpretation of this theory and its consequent literal interpretation as a transmigration doctrine led the Egyptians to mummify the bodies of their dead. Cf. Lucretius de Rerum Natura, Book 3, LL. 843-61, and Herodotus, Book 2, on Egypt. Cf. Dr. L.S. Fuggerens la survivance de l'âme, ou la mort et la renaissance chez les erders vivants. Études de physiologie et d'embryologie philosophiques, Paris, 1907. Cf. Revel Le Hazard, p. 457. Darwin never considered or attempted to suggest what it is that of itself really evolves, for it cannot be the physical body which only grows from immaturity to maturity and then dissolves. Darwin thus overlooked the essential factor in his whole doctrine. While the Druids and other ancients, wiser than we have been willing to admit, seem not only to have anticipated Darwin by thousands of years, but also to have quite surpassed him in setting up their doctrine of rebirth, which explains both the physical and psychical evolution of man. Transcriber's notes. Passages in italics are indicated by italics. Superscripted letters are indicated by superscript. Some quotes are opened with marks, but are not closed. Obvious errors have been silently closed, while those requiring interpretation have been left open. Other punctuation has been corrected without note. The following misprints have been corrected. Foretelling, standardized to foretelling, page 213, Rhŷs, standardized to Rhύs, page 322, Fom, corrected to from footnote 342, Name, corrected to Names, Index. Other than the corrections listed above, inconsistencies in spelling and hyphenation have been retained from the original. End of the Project Gutenberg ebook of the Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries by W. Y. Evans-Wentz.